Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am your host, Bridgett Brown, and today I am here with Jesse Cody. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Jesse and I met through a really nice keynote group that we're both in, and I heard some of his story, and I just wanted to have you on because I think it's so important. I've been really wanting to talk about men's mental health a little bit more on our platform. We dig in a lot about, women's mental health, but I just think, while mental health is universal, there's probably some things that we can dig into today that could help some men out there or people supporting men. And then also just anybody, dealing with mental health struggles or issues. You have, I know, really good personal experiences, not good, but you have personal experiences and really good insights and, recovery stories that you can share with us. So I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to just dig right in. While you aren't a licensed therapist, your lived experience really gives you a powerful voice in the mental health space. You've been really open about coping with childhood trauma, depression, narcissistic traits, and suicidal ideation. So I'd love to just start today by, sharing some of your story with us and ultimately what led you from nightlife to the wilderness.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm born and raised Cambridge, Massachusetts, spent most of my life in the Boston area. I did about 5.5 years in New York City as well, running bars in a nightclub in Times Square. Majority of my life, adult life, was working in an industry that is high paced, pretty toxic if you let it be. There's ways to definitely avoid it for sure. But for most people like yourself who are struggling with insecurities and depression and stuff, you seem to lean into the toxic side of it. And this was my life for so long. And let me be honest with you, before I became an adult and had to kind of find a career, I was a young man who actually, through high school, I was a 7-time state champion in track and field, cross country. I ended up going to Providence College on a full scholarship for running. And then really after that, when I didn't have like deep protection from a coach, from family, from my brother, from friends who kind of could keep an eye on me. And while I was learning at a young age, self-destruction mode really kind of came into play right away. And I started self-sabotaging within 6 months of going to Providence College. I flunked out of school and lost my scholarship. And that from there was kind of this, trajectory down of really kind of letting the issues that I was facing get the best of me. Like you said, early on, I noticed a lot in terms of insecurity, always worried that I let my family down. Even when I was winning races, those didn't affect me as much as the losses and what I felt like I was doing, how I was letting my parents down or letting my team down or my coach down. I could really look back at those things and remember how those things played such an impact on my mental health compared to the successes that I had in life. You're young and you're not aware of how the mind works. And you're certainly not, as a young man, aware that if you notice things, speaking up and asking for help is an option. You just kind of think that everybody's going through that. And especially in my case, I would imagine most of my guy friends are going through this, and just keep it to yourself and be tough and plow forward. I'll be honest with you, like I didn't come from a family with a dad that was super hard on me like that. I came from a very loving family. My parents were hippies, so they kind of had that loving, nurturing factor to them. But still, I think society got the best of me and always kind of thought, if you're a young man, if you're an adult, these are things that are just part of your life and you have to learn how to navigate them. And that just wasn't the case with me for a long time. And as I said, I moved into the restaurant industry eventually, and that was a place that really wasn't good for me. To kind of combat my depression and my insecurities, I started exhibiting narcissistic behavior, specifically in relationships with women. As a man that ran bars and nightclubs, I had the ability to kind of take advantage of staff, which I did. I am that picture of what we hear stories about, right? Whether it's men in the restaurant industry, I was a lot of those things. But the strange thing for me was I could see this inner battle with it. I hated it all about myself. I hated when I lashed out. I hated when I treated someone who cared about me deeply, when I treated them poorly. those things would really affect me, almost in the same sense of me when I was younger. And I felt like that feeling that I got when I felt like I was letting people down, that stayed with me. Like that never disappeared. And I know that's really the difference between being a true narcissist and understanding narcissistic behavior. Because if I was a true narcissist, I wouldn't have had that inner battle. That just would have been me.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, and I
so,
would have to think, and I want you to continue, but I would have to think
mhm,
that, if you did something and then you felt badly, that sort of like deepened the insecurity,
very much
right?
so.
There was probably,
Yep.
yeah, because that wasn't who you are inside.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't. And,
Or it isn't.
we could get really deep with this because my therapist is, who's been fantastic, has really showed me how to kind of really get back in touch with my younger self. And I think that was
Mm,
always this kind of young little version of myself in there that was just looking for answers that could help, but wasn't willing
yeah.
to. My adult version wasn't willing to literally reach out for help, and whether that was to get into therapy or to talk to my family or to like lean into friends. I was looking for ways to avoid all the things that I was struggling with, and I was lying to people. If people had noticed even in the smaller ways what's wrong, I'd be able to navigate that. We become very good actors when we're dealing with
Mm,
these type of things. And I always say I
yeah.
should have won several Oscars for the way that I was able to kind of keep things from so many people in my life that really cared for me and would have been there for me, if I was able to open up about that.
Do you think that this not asking for help, or a little bit, I would think you're sort of keeping a bit of some secrets, right? Like, don't let them
Hmm.
find out that I'm depressed, or I'm feeling insecure, or maybe you're spiraling down. Do you think the not reaching out, do you think that came from your upbringing, or do you think that was society and how you felt a man should behave?
I wouldn't say it was my upbringing. Definitely not my upbringing. But there is a part to my upbringing that I think plays a significant role in this. And I'll get to that in a second. But I think more so
Yep.
society was telling me that as well. When you struggle with something, especially at a young age, and you're just going through the day to day life with friends and going to school and playing basketball and baseball, you're around all your friends and none of you are talking about this stuff. Why would I ever be the one to bring it up? Right. So again, my thoughts are, I guess this is just part of life. Like, right. And if no one's talking about it, then I'm not going to, like, why would I talk about it? Right. It's an uncomfortable conversation, whether to have like, and to kind of try to open up to your folks. I mean, you think a million different reactions. And if you were to say, I need help, I'm sad a lot, I'm scared, and obviously as I got older and all these things that I was going through started really translating into, well, if this is who you are, and I used to think I can't change, but the problem was I wasn't asking to get any help to see if I could change. I just ultimately thought, this is your truest version. You don't you
Uh,
don't belong here. You're not worthy of actually having a life on this planet, because all this is ever going to be is whether it's pain for yourself or pain that you inflict on others. And
uh.
that really kind of was a leading thought for me, for many years in my life, up until I turned 40 years old.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah,
So, and that probably triggered those suicide thoughts, right? Yeah.
absolutely. I can talk about the times that I really was close to taking my life, that usually they were after a significant fight with a partner, and really hurting that
Mm.
person. And then I'd go back to where I lived, and I'd get home and I would just sit on my couch and cry and think to myself, like, why am I like this? Like, why am I saying these kind of things to a person who cares about me, and accusing and doing, like, creating this thing that's not even a reality and putting this on someone who just wants to care and love me. And what I'm doing is I'm ripping that apart. And that would really, like, I would be enraged with myself for being this way. And I'd be home and I usually, cry myself to sleep, or I try to find actual courage to take my life.
So, in those moments when you're very mean to a partner, what have you since then figured out you were actually trying to get?
my belief system in a relationship was eventually this person will hurt me. And so
Yeah.
why don't we stop that in its tracks and do the hurting first? So I'm
Mm.
always prepping that person. I know you're going to hurt me. I know you're going to cheat on me. Why are you talking to this person? Who are you texting? Like, and that to me was my way of kind of protecting myself, which is just such a
But it's
unrealistic
very common.
reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Mm-hmm.
common, 100%.
Yep.
I just kind of want to go back because you asked me about family upbringing in society. And you're the first person I'm actually opening up to about this. And I've made this decisions recently, and I've addressed things with my
Mm.
family recently that I did have significant childhood trauma for most of my young childhood life. And so this is something that I am working on now, and something that I finally opened up to my whole entire family and some of my closest friends about. There's a lot of reasons I'm doing this. One, it felt like time, even though for many years I thought I would keep it to myself, take it to my grave, and that this was something I would live with, because that in itself, when you talk about trauma, I can't help but think about how that affects people in my life who care and love me, specifically my parents, right? It's like, I don't want them to have to take a slice of my trauma with me, especially, they're older now. My mom is 80, my dad's 85. And it's like, it's a tough thing to really, to address, to confront and address with your family. But I will say my family, these conversations have, even though there's been a lot of pain and there's going to be a lot of process for us, they have been immensely beautiful. And you kind of say, when we were talking earlier, like, I thought to myself, I could never open up to my family about these things. The first thing both my mom and dad said is, we wish you knew when you were younger. A lot of things could have been different for you,
Mm.
and it's like, yeah, I can see that now. It took me a long
Yeah.
time to get there. And it's certainly, I needed to have these conversations to truly, truly understand that. But, I'm coming off of this trip in Boston that I was just on with more peace in my life than I've ever felt, because I've been able to kind of let this last massive chunk of what my life has been, and the trauma that's come with it. I've been able to really open up about it, and in a way, let it go.
Are you choosing to share this part now because you know that by sharing your story, it might give other people the courage to just at least acknowledge their story and get help? Yeah.
100%. I
Mm.
made this choice, roughly 10 years ago, to change my life through nature and hiking. That has given me so much beauty to my life, and given me a purpose. And I
Yeah.
made a promise. I've made a promise to Mother Nature 10 years ago that I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to dedicate my life to being a mental health advocate and talk about what
Yeah.
nature has meant to me. And as I've gone along, and the steps that I've taken, I really came to realize, if I'm going to be the absolute best that I can be at this job, which I don't find it really a job. I
Yeah.
just find it
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
life's work and
Same.
passion, right?
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That
Hmm.
that I have to be all in. That I have to be
Yeah.
all in. And because I realize more and more, being all in means more can get accomplished, and more help
Yeah.
can be
You know,
given to the world.
I totally agree. I'm learning too. It's like you can still be all in without sharing every detail, but
Hmm.
it's like at least just saying what you had said. It's like, okay, it's important to tell our parents, or it's important to actually take a good look at that piece that kept coming up for you. It
Hmm.
sounds like it just kept coming up, like, I need to deal with that piece if I'm going to deal with all the rest of it. Tell us, I'm so curious. You said at 40 years old, you made this change. And I think that's when you started kind of getting in tune with nature. What was that moment for you?
Well, it's going to come back to what I talk about, and that's my family and my friends. Right? They put on a really incredible 40th birthday party for me, and certainly I've had many, 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 many moments prior to that I'm around a lot of these people, but there was something just really significant about this day, and being around 50 plus people that really cared about me, and had a lot of love for me.
Mm,
I really just remember thinking to myself, wow, man, like, how can someone who has so much good in their life constantly think about taking their life? And then I kind of took that a little step further and thought to myself, do you really want the next time that these people all gather, do you really want it to be your funeral? And,
Mm.
and I just told myself, you really need to think about this, because I think you owe it to these people to try to find something where maybe you can take a little bit of charge of your life. And so I came out of that party really like, all right, man, like, I think it's time for you to at least try, because your goals have been to end your life, man. And you probably need to talk to somebody about this, and ask for help, and figure out if there's actually a possibility of maybe navigating through some of this darkness that you've just had in your life, your whole life. And
Yeah.
so off that party, I just started doing research. Like, how can I reset my life? You know, I knew I had to get out of the restaurant industry. Something in my gut was telling me I had to get away. Like I said,
Mm.
you can't do this under the umbrella of the people that care for you. You need to cut the cord, and really
Mm.
kind of face these things on your own. And I still wasn't able to find strength to go into therapy or to open up to my parents. I still was wrestling with that. But while I was doing this research, the book by Bill Bryson, A Walk in the Woods, kind of came into my
Mm.
life. And
Mm.
it's about hiking the Appalachian Trail, Georgia to Maine. And so I picked this book up, and I was just looking for some inspiration. A friend said, "This is a really cool book. There's a lot of inspiration in this." I wasn't thinking anything about nature.
Yeah,
my
this is cool.
my yeah, my jungles were nightclubs and bars. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
who was I to say, well, we're gonna go hiking? Like, there wasn't a reality to that, honestly. But
Mm.
Bryson talks about discovering the Appalachian Trail very early on in the book. And he, at that time in his life, he had a lot of great things in his life. He was professor at Dartmouth. He had already been a very established writer, beautiful family and beyond. And when he started understanding about the Appalachian Trail, he thought to himself, for all the good that's in my life, I still have some things that I feel I have to have answers to, that I'm still searching for. And maybe a
Mm.
long walk would help me find those answers. And
Oh, I love
yeah,
that.
it's honestly, I don't think I ever say that without kind of getting emotional about it. But it just struck me in the same way that love at my birthday party struck me. I said, maybe I need a long walk. And so I kind of got
Oh,
hooked on this idea of the Appalachian Trail, and I started doing research. And then I was like, how am I going to tell people that I'm quitting my
going
career
from nightlife to we're gonna
to
hike this mountain.
that I'm going to go down to Georgia and walk to Maine? And so I sat with my family, and I said, I feel like I've lost myself a bit, and I don't feel like I
Mm.
have much of a calling, and my life just seems really status quo, and it doesn't sit well with me. And I think I need to go find myself. And they
Mm-hmm.
were reluctant to the whole thing at first, for sure. But then they all started doing their own research, and my dad got really hooked on it. He's like, "This is amazing. You're
That's
really
cool.
going to go walk from Georgia to Maine?" And I said, "I am." I am. And it was roughly 4 months later, with my life in a backpack, that I stepped off of Springer Mountain and started my journey to Maine.
And
2,200
would you
miles of
say that
hiking.
first step, I guess the research was, but that first step was the beginning of your true
Mm,
healing journey?
100%. I had felt things leading into it, but most definitely as I started walking, that I don't even know if I've ever felt in my life. I felt passion. I felt drive. I felt focused. I felt the need for
Oh.
something that I honestly 100% believed that was going to change my life for the better. I wasn't like,
Mm.
maybe. I wasn't like, hey, you could quit this in a week. Hey, like, if this doesn't work, what's plan B? I honestly took the first steps thinking this is going to change your life for
Mm.
in ways that you can't even imagine yet. I also knew it was going to be the most challenging thing I've ever do in my life.
And was
Because
it?
again, of course, I mean, listen, the first time I ever slept in a tent was night one on the Appalachian Trail. Like, I went
Stop.
into this with no
Amazing.
experience, and people out there, other like true hikers, were like, "Oh, this poor guy, he's going to be done in a week."
Totally. Did you
Yeah,
do
but
the whole thing by yourself?
well, there's so many people out there attempting it that you start kind of grouping up with people, and
Cool.
you build your tramily. It's called the trail family, and it's your community. And I mean, honestly, that part of hiking, I didn't even think of going into it. I was out there really seeking to make changes for myself, to face things that I needed to face, and I didn't even realize that there were going to be so many incredible people that I met along the way that honestly had their own mental health journeys that they were on, and that we needed each other. And really, that magnified how beautiful it was in so many ways.
Are you still friends with some of them?
Oh, well, one of them is right now, one that I met very early on in the Appalachian Trail 10 years ago. She's out on the Pacific Crest Trail and literally texted me sneaker questions yesterday. Yeah, she's like my little sister.
I love
Yeah.
that. What would you say the biggest reflection was that you had out there?
Oh, this is great. That I actually could persevere. And that was something that I thought I could never do. That if there was ever any type of mountain in my way, and I'm talking before hiking, that I was running from it, that I was curling up in a dark corner and I was scared to face the mountain in myself. And every single day on the Appalachian Trail, you face several mountains and
That's
you got to
really
get out of them.
cool, Jesse. Do you feel now, with all your hiking experience that I want to talk about, that there's something so powerful about doing something so physically challenging, so something so mentally challenging?
So yeah, you got to be a bit of a masochist to take on these long treks for sure. And it's funny. It's like a lot of people, I'll tell people what I do or what I've accomplished. And people are like, you're crazy. And I go, yeah, ironic for a mental health advocate, isn't it? So there's like this, you got, it's almost like that. Like my therapist says, the best therapists are the ones who have been through it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so
we teach what we go through,
Exactly. And that physical, what that does for me physically out there, man, I love it. Like I moved to the mountains because I need it literally every day. like I need to do my work all day long. And then I just throw my shoes on and I run up a mountain and I feel that pain. And it's just like, it's a release. It's my release. It's a major part of my therapy. It's how I process. If I've got something going on, I know what I need to do to kind of work through that and position myself better to face it.
Yeah. Maybe a long walk would help.
Maybe a long walk would help.
I'm going to write that somewhere. It's so cool. Okay. So you talk about finding resilience through vulnerability. What does that mean to you? And how has that shown up in your healing journey, I would say?
Everything has felt like a weight to me through this process. I started with hiking and it took me a year and a half after finishing the Appalachian Trail to say out loud that I was suicidal. It took me that time long to talk to my family about why I took on this trek. And I've come to realize that those steps that I take, whether the trail ones or the ones that I'm doing in life off a trail, they're releases for me. And I need releases because it helps me. Yeah. Let it out. It helps me grow. It helps me learn. It helps me better understand who I am and what I'm capable of doing. It gives me the ability to think. When I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, I literally bought an old 93 camper van. And I told my family I'm going to Santa Fe and I think I'm going to stay there. And they're like, why do you love Santa Fe so much? I'm like, I don't know. I've never been there, but I'm going to take this leap. And so for me, I'm constantly leaping and it don't always work, but I'm okay with that because there's such an incredible lesson from it. And I'm always kind of trying to lift a weight off of me. And so opening up for me, man, it's given me this ability to have, like I said, this freedom that I never thought was possible. I'd never even had these thoughts of what would it take to find freedom? I could never even get that far. I could never see that in myself. And so when you find something like that, right? You just want to better yourself. I say often, man, we start learning in the womb. We learn even more when we come out and we don't stop learning until we have moved on. And if anybody thinks they know it all, they're missing out because we can learn so much more about the world and ourselves if we're open to the world and ourselves.
Yeah. And I think it's such a proven point with what you said and just the data out there that when you've been through trauma, little or big, getting it out, whether it's verbally or physically, it's so important so it doesn't get stored in our bodies. It doesn't get stored in our brain. And, it's like you said, that weight weighing us down.
Yeah.
So a lot of people just say like, get outside, it'll help. But I feel like that can just sound like one of those like self-care things that people kind of throw around, right? What have you personally experienced or seen other people go through that really kind of backs nature supporting our mental health?
I think the biggest thing that comes out of that, and it's a common theme with people when I talk to them about nature and how they've seen benefits from it, is that we're all living in our own personal chaos at all times, right? Like we're all affected by the world around us, and that can be big picture, whether it's political landscape, whether it's the environment, whether it's just friction amongst people. But it can be your own stuff, right? It certainly can be work. It could be home life. It could be past trauma not addressed. There's so much stuff there that we're constantly in a state of chaos that a lot of people don't even realize. Again, they just think that's the norm, and that this is the way it is, and that my goal should be this regardless of where I am here. And when I talk to people, and I'm so glad you started off with this. It's when people say to me, "Oh man, I get it. When I go outside, I feel so much better." And I go, "Yeah, but why?" I like to ask that question. What is it, and how? In what way do you feel better? And what are you comparing it to, right? And when people are talking about it, it's always like they're talking about, oh, work is just, I'm working more than I should be working, or like, my house payments. Things always come up. It's part of their chaos. And so what I say is, when you get into nature and you really pay attention, right? Whether you're out for a bike ride, I mean, some people just need to take a blanket and go to a field and lie down, right? And journal. I say, if you're really listening to what's going on in your mind compared to how your mind's reacting to the things around you that you're talking about within that chaos of yours, what's that dialect like? Because usually in chaos, we're just, right? It's almost like this inner turmoil, right?
We're ignoring everything. We're not being present at all. We're like,
we're
not,
just
ignore
right?
that, ignore that. Yeah.
And we're frustrated, and
Let
we
me
got
add
road
more
rage
chaos in, so we don't have to we don't have to think about any of the chaos.
Yeah, you see someone walking down the street with a smile on your face, and you're like, "What's wrong with that weirdo?" Like everything's just like, right? But when you're out and you're away from that, and you're away from the sounds of the cities, and you get a little bit of a different sound, birds, the wind. I always say, listen to the wind. The wind is like, to me, the most beautiful part of nature, because there's different sounds to wind. It's depending on what it's blowing through. And I notice, and I really I challenge people to do this, is the inner dialogue in my head changes. It turns from the frustration that you can deal with and almost an inner argument to this more of a calming conversation. Now, the conversation still might be challenging. It's more of a debate than it is a full out argument. And a lot of the times, if you're really focusing on that and you're trying to find a place to process whatever you're going through, there's results. You come out of that feeling like, man, I succeeded something there, something that I've been challenged by for a while now. I actually paid attention. And while I was doing that, I was taking in the smells, and I was listening to this, like these sounds, and like those birds having a conversation, and everything around me, I could see changes my inner dialogue to what I'm dealing with, and has helped me take steps, at least positive steps, to kind of have some results from whatever that was.
It sounds like the two biggest things you get is presence and gratitude. They say when you're really anxious to just tap into your senses. What do I smell? What do I feel? The wind, like you said. What do I see? That's really cool. Do you feel like since you've been spending so much time in nature, you've been more in tune with your intuition? You mentioned a little bit ago about, hey, I'm moving to Santa Fe. Yeah, like I'm moving to Santa Fe. I don't really know why, but I'm doing it. Do you feel like you were just so in tune with your intuition?
Yeah, 100%. I know what I need. I know what I want my life to look like, right? Like I have dreams of how it, I talk often. I just want to be in a rocking chair on my home in the high desert when I'm old. Like, yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm locked in like how I like my, and that in itself is still a challenge. Let's be honest. Like talking about where I came from and like my friends back in Boston and like all these things. Like sometimes you're almost like, your first reaction is like, I don't even know if I want to tell my friends this. They're going to think I'm weird. They're going to judge. And it's like, you got to get past that stuff. Like, they don't, like, they might give you a little bit of crap,
Yeah,
but it's all in
totally.
fun,
'Cause they're your
right? I
friends.
mean, they're my friends and we're Boston guys. And like, they're like,
Yeah.
do you even watch the Patriots anymore? Like stuff like that. I
Or are
do.
you
I do.
hiking?
Or
Wait,
yeah.
have you gotten
What trail are you
have
on
you
now?
gotten any of your friends in on the hiking?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not the long treks, but I've certainly, when I've gone back to Massachusetts, I've had a couple friends where we've gone up to New Hampshire and climbed, a 4,000 footer. I've had friends that have come out to visit me. I have friends who still are very adamant about coming out to visit me. And a lot of those conversations will say, man, I need some peace and quiet in my life. And I imagine if I come hang out with you, you'll show me where that's at. And I'm like, just get here. I got you.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah,
cool. Tell us about your hikes that you do, because you lead hikes,
absolutely.
right?
I don't lead hikes. Most of my hiking is to usually raise money for my nonprofit, but also supporting programs that we are in line with in the country. So again, I'm doing things, and I'm very prominent on social media and doing a lot of discussing during my hikes, a lot of lives, a lot of rails, and just really
Cool.
keeping people engaged in what I'm doing. And when I'm out there, I would say I'm an amateur photographer, so I love taking pictures. But over the last 10 years now, I've hiked just over 16,000 miles throughout the United States. I started with the Appalachian Trail. I've also hiked the Pacific Crest Trail and the Continental Divide Trail, which are the three biggest trails in America. And when you hike the three of them,
So cool.
you're a triple crowner of through hiking of the United States. So I'm very humbled by the fact that I have that, because it took a lot of walking and a lot of challenge, and it taught me a lot. And but I'm proud of
Yeah.
it for sure. And my hikings always have purpose, and most of all, it's a lot of talking about what nature's meant to me, and certainly talking about my mental health struggles and how these two things had come together, and where it's kind of taken me to a top of a mountain that I'm really proud of.
That's really cool. Tell us more about your nonprofit.
So Hike the Good Hike. Yeah, I started this just over 2.5 years ago. Started here in New Mexico. And essentially what we do is we look to help people who want to take on a journey in nature. Right now it's hiking. We want to expand that to anybody: mountain biking, running, kayaking, whatever people want to do. But if someone is on their own mental health journey and they're looking to take on a trek, and that trek is difficult because, one, you've got to take time away from work. Two, the gear that comes with it is extremely expensive. We're about to launch a sponsorship program where we will essentially supply all their gear and to give them a stipend for travel. Yeah. So you're talking, for a hiker, we're talking about $4,000 in gear if they're going to take on one of the long trails. In return for that, we want to know about their mental health journey, and they're gonna tell their story while they're hike through our platform, Hike the Good Hike. So whether it's writing, video, social media, they're sharing what they're seeing, how the changes they're seeing, what they were seeking, and being honest. Maybe sometimes people say, I'm still challenging with this, but I've learned this. Again, our platform ultimately is a storytelling platform where we're taking on people who want to use nature to better their mental health, but also on top of that, want to tell the story of what that's meant to them and where they started and where it's taken them. And we're there to kind of be that platform for them to open up about their
That's
struggles.
beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that you're doing that. That's so cool. I talk a lot about how, I do a lot of body image work. So we talk a lot about how our bodies are nature, and we forget about that. We're so busy, restricting and criticizing and pushing them. And it's like, I almost think we start living like outside of ourselves. And I think we can do that whether we're critiquing our body image or its mental health issues. And, it's like getting back into that flow of yourself and your body, but also just with nature. So it's so cool. Like every time I talk to people, how much like overlay there is really. It's like you can be like talking about something so differently, but it's really just, it's like coming home to yourself and coming home to, Mother Nature. And I don't know, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's all connected. Everything is connected. And when you talk about nature, we're so connected to nature, right? I don't think people understand their feet are hitting the ground or they're lying in grass, that like that stuff around you is connecting to you. Like it's part of you.
Yeah, that's actually one of my questions for you. Like for the people that don't have access to a hike or they can't take off a lot of time of work, like what are some easy ways that they can just get some of that grounding or, tidbits of nature into their life?
Absolutely. I mean, most people have parks. Most people have ponds or lakes. Some have the ocean. And, some are lucky to have nature within 30, 40 minutes of them. There's always access to something. Listen, I was just in Cambridge. It's an incredibly busy city, but Fresh Pond is right in the middle of there. It's 2.5 miles around the pond, and there's beautiful fields and there's trees, and it's pretty wild. I noticed this the other day when I was there, that like I just went for a walk and I was like, it's going to be in the city, so you're going to hear all these cars. But nature, I don't know, man, it's got this magic ability. It's like, even though the roads are right there, to drown it out. And so I stress this to people. I always say, listen, what I've done and the places that I've been and seen, it's not about that, right? Like my day hikes, I have hikes that I'll go out for an hour and a half. And those are just as important to me and my process as hiking for 4 months. And so I tell people, find a place, find a conservation. Like everybody has it somewhere close to them. And then again, to really make it about something that you're seeking mentally, just again, tune in to those surroundings around you, not the ones outside the parks, not the one
like be present here. Don't get bothered by the noise out there.
Yeah, we can shut it down. Really, I mean, cool. Look at people meditate in the city and they have the ability to, to shut everything out. It's in a very similar way. All I'm saying is, but tune in to what's going on in here and have that conversation. And the surroundings of nature really have this incredible ability to quiet everything around you.
Do you think there's something about nature, something about silence? Because I would think on a lot of these hikes, unless you're going with your friends, it's like with yourself.
I've hiked 500 miles where I've seen less than 10 people. I've solitude is incredibly important to me. Most of my every day when I'm out running up mountains and stuff, I need it because I'm looking for conversations with myself, and it's therapy. It is part of my therapy. It's part of my process. So solitude and being in nature again really gives me the ability to find the best place for me to kind of have that interaction that I need with myself, and then to kind of find some resolve. It's not like and again, it doesn't always, sometimes I'll like, if I'm frustrated with somebody, whether it's something with work or something, and I feel like if I had talked to that person in the moment, the conversation might not be great. But if I go have that conversation in a way out when I'm out in the mountain and I just envision the conversation, I find ways to make sure that when I do have that actual conversation in real life, it's a narrative where we're engaging and discussing instead of clashing.
Yeah.
And so that solitude is really important. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, like if I'm having problems with myself, it's the same thing. Go solve this, dude. And then come back to it and start working on it. And so that's what I tell people. Solitude is really a beautiful way. It can be scary for people. I understand. It's a leap. Most people are not used to it. Most people are like, I don't like being in my own headspace, but I find it to be very necessary. And I think when people,
yeah, me too.
Right? You take that chance.
Yes.
You take that leap.
I need a lot of that. That's really what heals me. If I'm being honest, like my time alone, it's really healing for me. I'm glad you said that. Because sometimes I'm like, I need a lot of quiet time. I need a lot of alone time. That is where when I process, I talk to myself, like you said, I'll journal. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Before we finish up, I just want to talk for a moment, just to circle back on what I mentioned in the beginning, men's mental health. You actually mentioned something in the beginning too about kind of having to like tough it out, So men are often taught to tough it out and not talk about emotions or not bring it up. Like you said, like, why would I bring it up? No one else is bringing it up. We're just playing ball or whatever. What shifts have you seen in how men approach mental health as you've been sort of submerged in this work? And what do you hope to see more of?
I've seen a real shift where men feel comfortable talking to men. That's something that I've had a lot of experience with, is that I'll have men that'll come to me and open up about things. And I had one specific situation with a man. I did an event in California last year, and he asked for some time, and he and I had a talk where he opened up and he was very emotional. And he said, I've never told anybody this, and I've never even told my wife this, And so I like seeing that if men are looking to open up, that they feel a little more comfortable. That first step being, I want to talk to another man. That was probably so non-existent.
I love that too.
50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, like men, like I can't even imagine a man thinking to himself, man, I'm going through these things. I'm feeling depressed and thinking I'm going to talk to my buddy from work. Like I can't even envision. But now I'm seeing that more men, and again, a lot of it's coming at people, whether they hear me speak, they come across me on social media, they hear me on a podcast, men will reach out and want to talk to me. And I'm so open to it because I'm like, that's such a great first step. Like, I'm like, boy, they don't even know. As a matter of fact, most would think you opening up to your wife or partner, if that's who you were with, that would be a bigger step. But it's like the biggest step is opening up to another man. Like that to me is pretty amazing, And so that's just for me, like that's a leap that I'm glad to see out of more men. I'm talking to a couple men here in Santa Fe. We're meeting next week about starting a men's group here in the city. And we're three guys that are, we've got scruff, we all look like, and we're almost like making it like our logo should be just three guys with cowboy hats. And it's like, but who are sensitive and love to talk about this stuff. Again, things you never would see before. Right. And so what I would like to see is for men to, in general, I just want to see more empathy in this world. But specifically, I think I would just imagine when men have children and they might have sons, that there is still a little bit of that, to do this, you've got to be this, and like you've got to show this toughness. And there's nothing wrong with toughness. I mean, look, I climb mountains. You got to, right? Like, well, we all if anybody challenges. Yeah. There's a bit of that in me, but I also recognize that I'm not going to get anywhere if I'm not empathetic, if I'm not open. Big thing here is non-judgmental, right? And that's one of the things, if we go back to me talking about not even realizing it to be this community that would develop around me. There were people there that before hiking, I would have scoffed at and never even talked at or judged before they even opened their mouth. And now there are just people in my life that I could never look at people that way, right? Like everybody has a chance with me. You want to talk, let's talk. And like, I see you as a human, and that's where we start. And so I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see some more empathy and understanding. It's a different day and age. The people are coming up differently. They're facing challenges that us adults can't even understand. I think that's a really important thing. I love to talk about youth and how they're coming up. Don't be so judgmental of their thoughts and feelings. Like we don't get it. We may look at it and go, why? But we don't understand it. And it's not for us to tell them no. It's for us to kind of communicate and be open to understanding and be empathetic of their experiences and how they see things in this world. And so I think that's important. I think we kind of peak and valley with these things in our world, and specifically in the country. And I'd love to just see that people could have a little more understanding, especially with our youth. I'm for everybody, but yeah, I mean, of course, young males. I know what I went through. I know what I struggled with.
Exactly. That's what I always say. I really know what I went through. I advocate for everybody, but yeah. Are you still teaching or doing any work with, like hands-on work with youth?
No hands-on work with youth yet.
Or coaching, I meant, not teaching.
No, I coached a long time ago. That's been out of my life. And you know this because of Smiley.
Yeah. Obviously. I didn't know if that was still like a part. You're just love our youth.
Full on. Yeah. I'm a lover of youth. Yeah. I'm a lover of youth. I do. I love.
Yeah, I know.
I think,
squeeze them. Yeah. I think like, I've had my mental health challenges as well, and suicide ideations and all that. And it's like, I think when you've felt those things, it's like you just never want them to feel those things.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's where I always go. I'm like, I know how hard it was for me. I want, and I know it's unrealistic for everybody, but I would just want people, especially young people who come up, to have a chance to feel that you can be who they want to be, and they can view the world they want the way they want to view it, and that they're not going to have people piling it on them and making them feel ashamed for being that way, because none of us want to feel that way. None of us do. And so it starts with us to kind of be leaders for them and to give them the opportunity to feel good about having us around them to be, teachers, as you say, or coaches, and doing it in a way that they feel appreciative of what we're trying to do and how we can help them come up in this world.
And I think that sharing and being vulnerable in a safe environment is really the first step. Just being able to say, I feel this, or this is bothering me. So thank you so much. Before we end and you tell everybody where they can find you, is there anything else do you want to share or leave us with?
I appreciate being here for sure, and letting me speak to this. Again, this is the first time that I'm saying out loud that there was significant issues in terms of childhood trauma with me that played a massive role in the rest of my life, and that this is a safe place to say that for the first time. I appreciate you for that, Bridgett, a lot. And I'm looking forward to it getting out to the world, because I'm in a men's group online, and there are a lot of men out there who have been through what I've been through. And there are a lot of men who are seeking help and they don't know where to start. And so when people give me a platform to speak on and let me use my voice and share my story, man, I'm always going to be grateful for that.
I'm so grateful that you trusted me, and thank you so much for sharing everything with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, tell everybody where they can find you and they can follow along and learn more about your nonprofit.
For sure. Well, it's pretty easy. It's hikethegoodhike.org is our website. And you can find us on social media at Hike the Good Hike. Check us out. And if you had a story to tell, reach out to us. We do a thing called the Portrait Project, where we ask people to take a picture of themselves in nature and give us a paragraph on what mental health and nature means to them. If you want to take part in that, let us know. We're just trying to spread the word, tell stories, and help people. And so come on over and say hi.
I love that. So they can just take a selfie of themselves and then a little story. And
then if you come to the website, there's a place that shows where you can submit that, and we'll get it up on our social media. And we're trying to grow it into something where we have portraits from around the world and more than we can count. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Bridgett.
Thank you for listening or watching Beyond Beauty Project, the podcast. If today resonated with you, pass it on to a friend. And to keep the conversation going, check out the workshops that I facilitate. For preteens to adults, we challenge perfectionism, we redefine confidence, and we really get back in tune with our minds and our bodies. I also offer keynotes for colleges and corporate, where I provide thought-provoking talks about redefining success and getting back in tune with your true self and your true genius. Subscribe to our newsletter, where you can keep up to date on everything BBP related. And as always, we love to hear from you. So drop us a review, send us a DM, and I will see you next week.